Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I had myself muted and did a little introduction and then realized that I was muted, so I'm glad that I didn't record too far in before I realized, because that would have been not fun. But luckily I've noticed, so we're all good. Anyway, the thing about today's episode is not necessarily trying to convince you of how important what I'm going to share with you is, because I think that the study does that for itself. I think the main part and the hardest part about today was getting you to click on this episode, and you already did. So hopefully it was because the title was interesting, or the title was intriguing, or maybe the description was interesting, or maybe you just always listen every single time. But I really think this information is super important and super applicable and super, honestly, just all of the words that it could be: beneficial, positive, helpful, all of the things. What I thought was kind of cool is that in my positive psychology class this semester, we had a lecture on emotion-focused coping, and this study was brought up towards the end. And then he shared some of the things about it and kind of a side study that they did. And then as I was reading this book for a different class, this exact same study came in, and then I got to know kind of the background of it. I also had details from the lecture that I didn't have in the book, and so putting both together, I got this understanding of this study that they did and how cool it was. And so because I have the PowerPoints from the lecture, I have the assignment that the study did, or the assignment that the researchers gave to the participants. Basically, essentially, you can do this little activity as well and get the benefits. So let's get started. First of all, I don't really know how you feel about me reading things. I can understand if it's frustrating, but I feel like if I summarize, I leave out stuff that's beneficial and leave out stuff that's important. And so I'd rather just read it so that you get it. And then you don't have to read it yourself or buy the book or buy the audiobook or find the part that I'm talking about. You can just hear it. And then obviously I give credit to who wrote the book. It was Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and it is The Body Keeps the Score: Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. And then, like I said, it's by Bessel van der Kolk, and he has a PhD and works with clients with trauma. So I'm going to kind of do a mixture of reading from this book that it kind of explains the study, and then I'm going to kind of add some stuff from the lecture that I learned. The title of this episode is The Miracle Medicine. And the miracle medicine, in case you're wondering, is writing. Writing and expressing yourself through written word, or expressing yourself through talking word, just through words and communication. And not only does this miracle medicine work for your mental and emotional health, but it literally changes your physical health and makes it better. And the study proves it. So, this original study was done in 1986. When James Pennebaker at the University of Texas in Austin turned his introductory psychology class into an experimental laboratory. Pennebaker started off with a healthy respect for the importance of inhibition, of keeping things to yourself, which he viewed as the glue of civilization. But he also assumed that people pay a price for trying to suppress being aware of the elephant in the room. He began by asking each student to identify a deeply personal experience that they'd found very stressful or traumatic. He then divided the class into 3 groups. One would write about what was currently going on in their lives. The second would write about the details of the traumatic or stressful event. And the third would recount the facts of the experience, their feelings and emotions about it, and what impact they thought this event had on their lives. All of the students wrote continuously for 15 minutes on 4 consecutive days while sitting alone in a small cubicle in the psychology building. The students took the study very seriously. Many revealed secrets that they had never told anyone. They often cried as they wrote, and many confided in the course assistants that they'd become preoccupied with these experiences. Of the 200 participants, 65 wrote about a childhood trauma. Although the death of a family member was the most frequent topic, 22% of the women and 10% of the men reported sexual trauma prior to the age of 17. The researchers asked the students about their health and were surprised how often the students spontaneously reported histories of major and minor health problems: cancer, high blood pressure, ulcers, flu, headaches, and earaches. Those who reported a traumatic sexual experience in childhood had been hospitalized an average of 1.7 days in the previous year, almost twice the rate of the others. The team then compared the number of visits to the Student Health Center participants had made during the month prior to the study to the number in the month following it. The group that had written about both the facts and the emotions related to the trauma clearly benefited the most. They had a 50% drop in doctor visits compared with the other two groups. Writing about their deepest thoughts and feelings about traumas had improved their mood and resulted in a more optimistic attitude and better physical health. When the students themselves were asked to assess the study, they focused on how it had increased their self-understanding. Quote, "It helped me think about what I had felt during those times. I never realized how it affected me before." End of quote. Another quote, "I had to think and resolve past experiences. One result of the experiment was peace of mind. To have to write about emotions and feelings helped me understand how I felt and why." End of quote. In a subsequent study, Pennebaker asked half of a group of 72 students to talk into a tape recorder about the most traumatic experience of their lives. The other half discussed their plans for the rest of the day. As they spoke, researchers monitored their physiological reactions: blood pressure, heart rate, muscle tension, and hand temperature. The study had similar results. Those who had allowed themselves to feel the emotions showed significant physiological changes, both immediate and long-term. During their confessions, blood pressure, heart rate, and other automatic functions increased. But afterward, their arousal fell to levels below where they had been at the start of the study. The drop in blood pressure could still be measured 6 weeks after the experiment ended. It is now widely accepted that stressful experiences, whether divorce or final exams or loneliness, have a negative effect on immune function, but this was a highly controversial notion at the time of Pennebaker's study. Building on his protocols, a team of researchers at the Ohio State University College of Medicine compared two groups of students who wrote either about a personal trauma or about a superficial topic. Again, those who wrote about personal traumas had fewer visits to the Student Health Center, and their improved health correlated with improved immune function, as measured by the action of T lymphocytes, which are natural killer cells, and other immune markers in the blood. This effect was most obvious directly after the experiment, but it could still be detected 6 weeks later. Writing experiments from around the world with grade school students, nursing home residents, medical students, maximum security prisoners, arthritis sufferers, new mothers, and rape victims consistently show that writing about upsetting events improves physical and mental health. And then that's the end of the quote for this part that I'm going to read. Isn't that fascinating? And so interesting that writing about trauma or stressful experiences and events physically and mentally improves your overall well-being. I think it's just crazy. So from the lecture on the PowerPoint, it says participants found the exercise to be valuable and meaningful, and 98% said they'd do it again. And then it also adds that the overwhelming long-term effects of writing the story were helpful. There was less hospital visits, better immune functioning, less depression, less anxiety, and better overall mental health. And then it talks about how there's 3 mechanisms at play. Mental inhibition, so this is not talking about emotional upheaval and suppressing things, and it's really unhealthy. People who experience sexual trauma disclose less often and have higher blood pressure, more ulcers, higher rate of cancer, and more flu. And that's just something that we've talked about. And then it shares that after the participants wrote, they had a reduction in blood pressure, muscle tension, and skin conductance. And so basically holding back emotions is hurtful to the body. It is harmful to the body. This is actually what I wanted to share with you, though. This is the prompt that some of the students were given for writing out their stressful things. And I think I'm going to put this in the description because our professor challenged us that if we do this and we write a reflection page about it, then we get extra credit. even without being in the study, this can have extreme benefits for you. Obviously, you just won't be, recorded or whatever. But this is what it is, okay? So once again, I'll put this in the description, but this is what it says. For the next 4 days, I would like for you to write about your very deepest thoughts and feelings, about the most traumatic experience of your life. In your writing, I'd like you to really let go and explore your very deepest emotions and thoughts. You might tie your topic to your relationship with others, including parents, lovers, friends, or relatives. You may also want to link your experience to your past, your present, or your future, or to who you have been, who you would like to be, or who you are now. You may write about the same general issues or experiences on all days of writing or on different traumas each day. All of your writing will be completely confidential. I mean, obviously, because you're not going to show this to anyone and you're not in the study, but this is what prompt they were given. So they were asked to really dive deep, to connect it to relationships, to connect it to their past, their present, their future, who they'd like to be, who they were, and so on. And then that's the thing that they did that gave them those miraculous benefits, the less hospital visits, better immune functioning, less depression, less anxiety, and better overall mental health. This is huge. Huge. Absolutely huge. I just think it's so important, and I wish more people knew about this because it's such a powerful, miraculous medicine that everyone, literally everyone, has access to. Just speaking about what is hard and what, you've been through, or if you have a pen and paper, writing about it. And most people can find a pen and paper, and obviously some people can't, but even they can talk about it and relieve that pressure. So the thing with the narrative psych, so this is constructing the story, the self-narrative of your life. It facilitates a sense of resolution that gives an individual a sense of control and allows for them to be in sync with their core selves. And this is a connection that trauma disrupts, so that when we write this story and these self-narratives, you can become in sync with yourself once again. This is just something from the lecture that I'm sharing. And then it also says on the lecture that Pennebaker's results showed that the writing exercise was much more than just disclosing the event. The more participants used positive emotion words, the more their health improved. Using a moderate number of negative emotion words led to a greatest drop-off of physician visits. It's like a moderate versus a ton, because you still have to use some negative emotion to express, how you're feeling. And then these words showed up in a greater number toward the end of the writing exercise, which is so extremely interesting, isn't it? So what does this tell us about what they wrote? As they wrote, they were able to get deeper into their emotions. This lecture also says the writing exercise, which was much more than just disclosing the events, once again, the process of constructing a story was what provided the benefit. Word counts suggest that those who experienced the most benefits of the study used words like realize, understand, come to terms with, and getting past. And so what does this imply? Better understanding of themselves and the events. I just feel like this is so important, and this is so applicable and crazy that I wish more people knew about it. I mean, this can change everything. I know that there are people out there who are sick a lot, and sometimes they're super negative, and I'm curious if perhaps those things are correlated. So anyway, going back to the book, there was one more study that I wanted to discuss. So this is from the book again. There are thousands of art, music, and dance therapists who do beautiful work with abused children, soldiers suffering from PTSD, incest victims, refugees, and torture survivors, and numerous accounts attest to the effectiveness of expressive therapies. However, at this point, we know very little about how they work or about the specific aspects of traumatic stress they address, and it would present an enormous logistical and financial challenge to do the research necessary to establish their value scientifically. The capacity of art, music, and dance to circumvent the speechlessness that comes with terror may be one reason they are used as trauma treatments in cultures around the world. One of the few systematic studies to compare nonverbal artistic expression with writing was done by James Pennebaker and Anne Krantz, a San Francisco dance and movement therapist. 1/3 of a group of 64 students was asked to disclose a personal traumatic experience through expressive body movements for at least 10 minutes a day for 3 consecutive days, and then to write about it for another 10 minutes. A second group danced but did not write about their trauma, and a third group engaged in a routine exercise program. Over the 3 following months, members of all groups reported that they felt happier and healthier. However, only the expressive movement group that also wrote showed objective evidence, better physical health, and an improved grade point average. This study did not evaluate specific PTSD symptoms. Pennebaker and Krantz concluded the mere expression of the trauma is not sufficient. Health does appear to require translating experiences into language. That's a huge thing about writing and about expressing yourself, that although dance is helpful and although dance or art can be a powerful way to heal, especially for those who struggle being open verbally and talking about it, writing about it is the very best possible thing that people could do for themselves. And it really is a miracle medicine. And so I challenge you, I really do. I challenge you to do this activity. I challenge you to write down for 4 days about your very deepest thoughts and feelings. And do that activity that Pennebaker gave students, because it has scientifically research proven, empirically based evidence that it's beneficial for you. I'm a huge advocate for journal writing. I absolutely love to journal write. I've written since 3rd grade off and on, and I think that being a journal writer has allowed me to become extremely introspective and reflective. And I think being introspective and reflective is helpful in lots and lots of different ways. But one of the ways is that in college, they ask you to reflect about different things lots of times. And because I can do it so easily, since I've done it for so many years, I can do it pretty fast, doesn't take me much time. I'm constantly just growing and kind of understanding myself better. And I think it's such a cool thing. I'm so grateful and I just love it. I want to share this with you. I want you to be able to experience the joy and the understanding and the gratitude that I have found through writing and through journaling. Because it is powerful and it is a miracle medicine. It is a miracle medicine. I just wish more people knew about it, like I said. So anyway, that's my little thing. I know I read for most of it, but I want to share the word of the day with you today. This word is propinquity, and it is a noun, and it means proximity, closeness, nearness, adjacency. It can also mean close kinship, close relationship, family connection, blood ties. So propinquity means that you are near someone, and it can be physically near someone, or it can mean a close relationship with someone. And I think that one's propinquity will grow their relationship with others as they are more honest and open about how they're feeling and how they're doing, because when we are sharing how we're doing with loved ones, that's when we're able to grow and to connect. Without vulnerability and without honesty, there's really not much room for growth, and there's really not much room for connection. Because ideally, when we have strong relationships, it's because we've been vulnerable with one another and we've gotten to know really on a deep, individual, personal level who that person is. And they have gotten, in turn, to know you. And so when someone knows you for who you really are and you feel understood, there is this peace that comes. And if you haven't experienced it, that's okay. There's still time. I mean, you have the rest of your life to experience it. But I promise you that when you share and you find the right people to share with, right? Because not everyone deserves your deepest, darkest feelings of your heart and your soul. But when you find the right person to share with, whether that's a family member or a friend or a significant other, and they accept you for who you are, it's like a joy and a happiness that I can't even describe. Being known and being loved even though you have faults and flaws and things like that is so powerful and is so magical and amazing. And I just absolutely love that. And so for the quote of the day, I want to kind of add and elevate the discussion. This is by Joyce Meyer. She said, "We can improve our relationships with others by leaps and bounds if we become encouragers instead of critics." End of quote. And so in addition to listening to other people, getting to know them, and really truly bonding and growing, the best way to do this is to be accepting and loving when people open up about who they really are, and to be loving and understanding and good listeners. And if you don't always understand at first, it's okay to ask genuine questions. And maybe not questions necessarily to probe, but questions to just get a better understanding. And so I encourage you to become an encourager. I encourage you to do this writing exercise. I encourage you to open up and to think and reflect, because reflecting is part of human nature. And when we are able to reflect, we're able to grow. And we're able to become better people and honestly better disciples. And so I know that in my life, journaling has changed how I handle things. It's changed how I grow. It's changed how I feel after dealing with something, because there's an increase of peace and I just feel less pressure. And so I encourage you to try it. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work, right? So try it. What's stopping you? Try it today, try it tomorrow. It might be hard at first and it might be kind of stressful and overwhelming as you do it the first few days, but the overall and long-term effects are going to be so powerful. And I encourage you to keep expressing yourself and keep being open and keep being vulnerable, because it's worth it. And it leads to powerful and meaningful connections that you can't get without it. So there's my invitations to you today. There was a lot of them. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to embrace imperfection, find meaning, satisfaction, and joy from the journey. I'm Kyra, and this is Imperfectly Broken, the podcast.